Hello, it's the Coaster Craze, and in my latest roller coaster countdown, I'm counting down all 12 roller coasters at Six Flags New England in Agawam, Massachusetts, from worst to best. So let's get right on with this list. And the worst one, this may surprise you, because typically you think the kiddie coaster. Nope, Goliath, the Vekoma giant inverted boomerang, the nearly 200-foot tall coaster, is the worst coaster at Six Flags New England. Few rides have left me with this much pain while riding it. Like, I didn't have a crazy headache when I came off, but just it felt like a torture device when I was inside. Head banging, just like the back and forth, the roughness, the shaking. It was insane. The only good part was that first vertical drop was pretty crazy, especially in the back seat. I did get some airtime and some good negative G's, but after that, it was just absolute hell. At number 11, I do have the kiddie coaster of the park. This is the Great Chase, which is built by E&F Myler, and their kiddie coasters are pretty fun for their small size, with small little hills that give tiny pops of airtime and are generally comfortable experiences. So now we're in the top 10. I know this one's going to be a very controversial pick, but at number 10, I'm putting Thunderbolt, their historic 1940s wind coaster. And this roller coaster literally did nothing for me. It's very small, it's very short, and it's insanely rough. The only airtime I got was really just that the restraints are high and it's really bumpy, so you get tossed out of your seat, but not in a good way because none of the hills actually provide good ejector, and the drops are really bad and there's no laterals to it, so it's purely just a rough, boring ride that didn't do anything for me. On the other hand, my number 9 pick, Callum's Whip, really exceeded my expectations. I had ridden the Xerier Tivoli coasters before, but never in the last row, and these are the 20-row trains, so the last row is always so crazy and so fun. You actually get a decent amount of intensity and whip over all the transitions, and it's a very well-landscaped area of the park, so just a really, really fun family coaster that I actually rode multiple times because it was that enjoyable. Gotham City Gauntlet Escape from Arkham Asylum is coming in at number 8. Besides its mouthful name, it's actually a pretty fun coaster and one of my favorite wild mouses. Due to having very few brakes set on during the ride, at least my ride, it was just going throughout the course with decent speed, and I was getting good pops of air on lots of the drops, in addition to it having a really cool theme with all the different cars themed to different Batman villains, and some like tunnels during the ride. Now number 7, I have Flashback, the standard Vekoma boomerang coaster, and I found this one to be pretty solid. It doesn't have any headbanging because the restraints are pretty solid, and I actually love the forward and backward drops. I actually got like some really good negative G-force on them, so I was really impressed with that. And the forward loops were pretty fun, but the Vekoma boomerangs are a bit janky and like just the transitions, and so when going backwards, it was very disorienting. Some people might think of that as a good way, but got me a little nauseous. After the ride, I was fine. Still a pretty solid coaster. At number 6, I have Riddler Revenge, which is a Vekoma SLC, but this one actually isn't terrible at all because it received the new trains with the vest restraints a couple years back, so there's no headbanging at all. The track is still a bit rough, and the way the trains ride on them is a bit like just janky in terms of, again, the transitions, and I found that it did have a significant rattle that made it not a super enjoyable ride for me, but it is a great layout, and you don't get the headbanging, so you do get some great hang timing, and overall, I found it to be, in terms of a Vekoma SLC, a pretty fun ride. Now at number 5, I have Pandemonium, which really surprised me that it would be in the top 5 of this park, but it was just a very short and sweet, fun family coaster. The spinning was really, really just well done in the sense that it didn't make me dizzy or anything, but it felt out of control in the best way, and I really, really loved some of the elements like the downward spiral or the backwards airtime hill I got, and how it interacts with the terrain a little bit, how it has the trenches that go below ground a bit. I thought that was really, really cool. At number 4, I have Joker, one of the many Six Flags installations of the prolific SNS free spin model, and I'm actually a huge advocate of these. Even though they're incredibly short, I find them super fun and very re-rideable because they have butter smooth track, and yeah, it depends on how good of a ride you get in terms of how many flips, but it's a very unique out of control sensation that you can't find on any other coaster besides 4D coasters, and I find it super fun and just a great fit for the park. I'm starting out the top 3 with Batman the Dark Knight, which is a B&M floorless coaster and one of the few custom coasters at Six Flags New England. I think it's a pretty solid ride and definitely very enjoyable, very minimal B&M rattle, overall smooth ride, and almost no headbang despite the over-the-shoulder restraints, but the layout is a bit uninspired. I enjoyed the drop a lot and loved the hang time on the loop, dive loop, and zero G roll, but after that the coaster just became, the generic B&M floorless ending with the interlocking corkscrews and bang turns that I'm not a huge fan of. Overall, it's a pretty fun ride, but kind of unspectacular. Finally, we've arrived at the big top 2, the reason coaster enthusiasts go to Six Flags New England, and the weaker of the two is Superman the Ride, the intimate hypercoaster that is absolutely legendary. My favorite hypercoaster, and just a phenomenal, well-rounded ride. I have a full review of it up on my channel, so go tap the iCard to see that. But to summarize, I just love how it combines the traditional out and back hyper, which involves actually a really intense overbank turn, with great theming for a hyper coaster, and then the spaghetti bowl section at the end with some great intense helices and some really great pops of ejector air on the bunny hills. Just such a fun coaster and an absolute must do for any enthusiast in the world. So of course that leaves at number 1 Wicked Cyclone, the 2015 RMC that is just phenomenal and way better than it should be considering its stats, but RMC did such a great job packing in such a long and just excellent ride into the former Wind Cyclone coaster, which was very mediocre at best. And this ride, it goes around the course 3 times. Yeah, maybe it loses a little bit of pacing at the very end, but there's just few coasters with such an out-of-control feeling as Wicked Cyclone. It's actively trying to throw you out of your seat the entire ride, with the outer bank turns, the crazy zero G rolls and hang time, the intense double downs, double ups, with ejector air, twisted airtime hills, the crazy drop, everything about it. This coaster is so insane, and that's why I put it at number 1. It's one of my favorite coasters I've ever been on, and an absolute must ride. So thank you very much for tuning in to my ranking of all 12 coasters at Six Flags New England. I'd love to hear your opinions on the coasters in the comment section down below. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Coaster Craze for a lot more coaster content coming very soon. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.